also in petroleum engineering. However, as His Royal Highness said, Professor Fatani, we are part of a generation that is expanding in our knowledge and trying to reach out and having synergy between different sciences and disciplines. So my interest and my kind of expertise became trying to marry between the climate catastrophe like it's being proposed, the environmental stewardship, and also looking at the practicality side of energy security and that we need more energy to be provided for the rest of the world. So the problem with most of these technologies that have been proposed since the 1950s and 60s in terms of carbon capture and storing beneath the earth, which was called more sequestration, is that most of these technologies are a dead end, as in no investor with the right mind will invest in a technology that has no income, that will generate no revenue. So looking into a lot of techniques and technologies that are available, that where you can marry between these techniques and also you can create a source of revenue and produce oil. Now, that's a quick background about myself, but I'm here today to talk to you, our younger generations, our expert people, about the vision that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has in terms of energy mix in terms of the future and energy sustainability as part of this whole big vision that has been proposed 6 years ago or even 7 years ago by next April. So what do we mean by energy sustainability? I have a definition that I like to use, and it's kind of intertwined with everything that's being proposed. So when we say energy sustainability, that means we should have it available, number one, it has to be efficient, it has to be economically feasible, and it has to be provided in the most responsible way in terms of emissions, in terms of pollution, in terms of safety, all of the above. So the kingdom started looking at how it can contribute and lead by example as one of the largest energy suppliers on the planet in terms of oil. So, but they tried to look at it from a more of a circular, holistic way. So the problem in the past that has been proposed that in order for us to reduce our emissions is we need to reduce our consumption. However, the world's population is growing. We need more energy. There's a lot of nations right now that it's their turn in terms of their prosperity and economic growth, that requires more energy. So what the kingdom has done is proposed several kind of propositions, but one of them, and when they hosted the G20 in November 2020, is one of their flagship initiatives was the circular carbon economy. So circular carbon economy is basically a methodology and approach that takes into consideration each nation's current status in terms of their technical capabilities, their economic capabilities, their manpower, their technological advancements. Each country have their own kind of setup. There's no one size fit all for all the countries, and that's been one of the problems in these past years. It's like more advanced countries, let's say Scandinavia, or let's say California in the United States, even the United States of America as a whole 50 state, you cannot compare the infrastructure in California with what you have, let's say, in Mississippi or Arkansas or Oklahoma. Every single thing is different. Even in the United Kingdom, we cannot talk about, North and Scotland and what's happening, let's say, in London and Newcastle. There's different things that are happening that we need to take into consideration. So what Saudi Arabia did is gave these 4 pillars, the 4 R's. We need to reduce emissions, we need to remove them, we need to reuse them, and we need to recycle them. Now the reducing part is somewhat simple, self-explanatory. You go ahead and you improve the efficiencies of the technologies that you use and their energy consumption. Now, some of you, all of us, I think, are young enough and even old enough to remember, by 2007, some of you don't know that these plans have been seeded way before this whole vision thing. That Saudi Arabia has always been responsible when it comes to the environmental side. But if you remember back in 2006, 2007, the Ministry of Commerce in Saudi Arabia started that whole star system with electrical appliances. Anything below 3 stars that they have to be banned, they will no longer be imported, and everyone who had it stored in stocks basically need to get rid of it. And there was even some sort of compensation in terms of insurance for those, traders that already bought them. Why? Because these consume a lot of energy. So it started way back then. So from that came more and more consciousness that our houses are consuming the majority of the electricity. So now we go one by one tackling all these things. And then that's one way of kind of reducing the emissions. However, we're going even bigger. A lot of you, I'm gonna go back and forth with these 4 R's, but I'm trying to just kind of make things interesting instead of listing them. Just giving you back and forth in terms of how the kingdom is looking at it. So every one of you heard of the Saudi Green Initiative. One of our esteemed speakers also explained that. So the Saudi Green Initiative is basically our set of initiatives and guidelines and efforts that they would like to pursue. So by 2060, Saudi Arabia wants to achieve net zero carbon emissions. Now, here's the thing. I have a problem a lot of times with people understanding the CO2. CO2 has always been given, I have a special relationship with CO2. That's basically what I work on almost all the time. CO2 has always been this evil mantra that this is basically the bane of all evils and it destroys lives and everything. But that is not the case. There's no CO2, there will be no plants, there will be no sea life, there will be no animals, therefore there will be no human beings, volcanoes will erupt, and basically we'll be all doomed. So we need CO2 in our life. One of our presenters, what did he say? In that closed environment of the plant, the high-tech closed environment, because it's basically now been isolated from the environment, they gave them CO2 doses so plants can grow. The problem is when you have excess of CO2, just like anything in life, anytime you have excess, you eat too much, you get obese, you drink too much water, so much you'll get water poisoning. Anything that has excess will always be a negative. That's why you need to always look at it as managing and using. So when we say net zero, it's basically whatever you produce of CO2, you use it. That doesn't mean that you will have zero emissions, like some of the claims that are coming out as just a misconception they have. So that's their target. How are they going to achieve that? Well, by 2030, Saudi Arabia has pledged through several initiatives that they will be removing, through several initiatives, which I will kind of list some of them for the sake of time, 278 million tons per year of CO2 that they will get rid of. Now, a lot of you may be having a problem on quantifying what does 278 million tons of CO2 mean. That means the greenhouse emissions of 60 million passenger cars that work on petrol. So that's imagining 60 million cars in the streets being eliminated. There's no longer emissions from those cars. I'll even go further. That's basically 31 billion gallons of petrol. Since coal has become trendy these days, I use coal examples. So for coal, that's the equivalent of 308 billion pounds of burning coal, which is around 74 electricity coal power plants. So that just by 2030. How? Well, they already started introducing renewable energies. Wind turbines in the government agenda. Sky, they already started their own solar panels, and they're already feeding the houses. So in Saudi Arabia, by 2030, the target is 50% of our energy mix will be coming from renewables, and the other 50% is from natural gas. That will basically remove 1 million barrels of crude and oil products that we currently use to generate electricity. Now, why is that a good thing? Still, some people just have a problem with fossil fuel. Well, natural gas is CO2. There's other basically greenhouse emissions, but let's just focus on CO2. Natural gas is CO2 emissions is 45% less than what coal gives you. It's 30% than what oil gives you in terms of emissions. It's even 15% less than what burning wood would give you in terms of CO2 emissions. So natural gas is a good efficient, economically feasible, available source. Mr. Walker talked about how gas, when it was discovered in the North Sea, which is correct, made that the need and necessity for the coal industry, which has been famous here in Newcastle over the years, to kind of go away because we have something that is more environmentally sound, that is also very much more efficient, cleaner, and it's easily to handle. So, as part of that, one thing I love that was said, no more wastage. No more wastage. Everything needs to be efficient, everything needs to be used. One of my colleagues here talked about desalination. That's one of the main emitters of CO2. They're already working on all the desalination plants in Saudi Arabia. Will be working on solar panels. They will be working on renewable energies in the future. Now, other items as well. You can also be efficient in terms of what you're producing. Well, I have this natural gas that I want to increase my capacity of using to 50% of my energy mix. However, I can get something else, hydrogen, blue hydrogen. Now you've heard of the green hydrogen, blue hydrogen. They're all hydrogen. They're all the element of H or H2. However, the categorization of the color is how you get that hydrogen. So blue hydrogen is hydrogen that you get from hydrocarbons, mainly gas. However, you go ahead and you capture the CO2 that comes out. So whenever you use methane, you can get that hydrogen, but it also produces CO2. Someone also from the speakers talked about that. When you capture it, that's now, because it's clean, and you need to do something with that CO2, that's called blue hydrogen. Well, also the green hydrogen, which is using electrolysis, which is basically using renewables. Now, that's the process, but where is the H coming from? Water. This comes from water. That's what usually is being done. Water is basically H2O. Now, here's what Saudi is doing. They have a lot of gas. They're going to be working more on gas. So they're going to produce a lot of blue hydrogen. NEOM, you've heard of NEOM. NEOM, they're building the largest green hydrogen plant on the planet. It's going to cost $5 billion. Now, the genius about what they're trying to do is, it's not just for free. It's nice to do something idealistic for the environment, which is true, which is why they're doing it. However, when there's an economic chance behind it, that's what helps. The International Renewable Energy Agency, IRENA, they say that hydrogen, by 2050, is going to be a $700 billion industry. $700 billion. So when you go ahead and plant the seed right now, and you help the environment, and basically get double the money, which is basically oil sustainability, and gas and petroleum,